Thank you. May all beings be at peace. May all beings be free of suffering. May all beings remember who they are. I could not help but think of that marvelous saying of Jesus during that song of, "The Father hears your prayer even before it is spoken." Father knows the desire of your heart even before it is expressed. If we really knew that, how would it affect our choices? Would we choose differently? Would we choose more gently? Would we choose more openly? Would we make ourselves available to asking for help? Not just when we need it, but asking for help each moment of each day. Help me to choose what's right for me, because most of the time I don't know. I think I know what I need. I know what I want. And I think what I want, when I get what I want, is going to make me happy or whatever. Doesn't usually. Or if it does, it's only for a split second. What would it be like if my continual prayer was, Lord, that I may see? Show me, allow me to manifest, allow me to open myself to, allow me to create what it is that I truly need. Not what I want, but what I truly need in this particular moment in my life. I continue to go back sometimes to that wonderful line from the rock opera Tommy. See me, feel me, touch me, heal me. It might not have been meant that way originally, but that is, to me, is such a marvelous prayer. See me, feel me, touch me, heal me. And notice what that does to our choices. Instead of choosing what I want, instead of even trying to choose what I need, I open myself to the truth of my soul's yearning at this particular moment. And I allow myself to be healed, I allow myself to be fed, I allow myself to be held, I allow myself to be touched. I allow myself to be real. Sometimes I think I am free, but I really wonder if I am. We all showed up here on Sunday morning, because that's what we do on Sunday morning. Oh yeah, I go to Gerry's class, or I check in on Unity, and I do, because I do, that's what I do. It's what you do, but was it free? Did you do it just because you're used to doing it? What would it be like to take a moment just to step back and ask myself a question? What are all the things that might influence my choices in life? And just notice what you begin to come up with. I remember years ago I was talking to a class when I was working in a treatment center for alcohol and drug rehabilitation. And I was talking to a class of family members who were rather hostile at the moment because they didn't particularly like the idea that their son or daughter or spouse was in treatment and didn't understand anything about alcoholism or any other kind of addiction. And I was trying to get the message across a little bit, and without beating dead horses. And I came up with this idea. I said to them, I said, now, is there anything in your life that you would like to change? I said, it's a rhetorical question, but you can imagine you raising your hand or not. And so, I could tell everybody, yeah. I said, do you have a general idea at least of what you need to do in order to make that change possible? And I could tell again, I had pretty much confirmation from everybody out in the audience. So for instance, if you'd like to be in, let's say, better physical shape or healthier, say, well, okay, that's my desire, that's what I'd like. And I know the things that I need to do. I need to drink more water. I need to, put more fruits and vegetables in my diet and blah, 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 blah. We know all the things we need to do to be exercise once a day. And all of it, we know all the things we need to do. Third question, how come you're not doing it? And all of a sudden, this is not on purpose, I wasn't trying to manipulate anybody, but all of a sudden you could see this look of consternation on people's faces. How they began to realize, if they were open enough to it, that there were any number of goals in their lives that they wanted to be able to achieve, that they had the methods and the means of being able to achieve them, but they weren't doing anything about it. Now, it's a really difficult step to go from that place to recognize that I am choosing not to put in practice what I already know. Nobody likes to look, I don't like to look at that. Because I've got to ask myself the same 3 questions all the time. I don't like to look at that. I know nobody likes to look at that. But that's really kind of the crux of the matter is, how come how did Paul put it? How come I do what I don't want to do? I don't do what I love, I do what I hate. What's the matter with me? Well, the answer could be really simple. You're a human being. And you tend to avoid responsibility. You would much rather blame it on someone else or something else. To be responsible for getting my body in shape means that I'm also responsible if it doesn't get in shape. And I'd much rather blame somebody else for that impossibility than to take on that responsibility myself. Now, we can raise that to all sorts of different levels, and this is not about judgment, please. Because it's very easy once we start getting into self-questioning like that to fall into judgment and say, well, there must be something really the matter with me because I'm not doing this right. It's not about that at all. It's about beginning to enter into a consciousness that is sometimes referred to in spiritual literature as the witness or the observer. The witness or the observer consciousness is part of our spiritual being that has the ability to step away from or to step out of a particular situation and to see it in a very non-judgmental but understanding kind of way. It's not psychological disassociation, but it is a certain amount of detachment, of stepping away. Let's suppose, for instance, that I think I'm having difficulty with someone in my life whom I love and who loves me back. That somehow or another that relationship just doesn't feel right. There's something missing or something that needs to be done. And I don't know what that is. And I don't want to blame the other person for that because I realize that I'm responsible for whatever this is too. And so in order for me to be able to understand what it is and how to be able to deal with it, I need to take a step out of that emotional state of mind that something's missing, that something's wrong here. Take a step out of that emotional state of mind and take a look at this in a very non-judgmental, non-attached kind of way. And so I do that. I step out of it and I look at myself and I look at this other person. I say, now what's going on here? And maybe one of the first things I notice is that somehow or another I am carrying around a sense of guilt or shame or that says, I'm not doing enough in this relationship. And what I'm doing is I'm projecting that on the other person and saying, well, I think that's why they're pushing me away, which has nothing to do with the truth. It is what's going on with me. But when I allow myself to be in that objective, non-judgmental state of mind, if I am open enough to it, all of a sudden I realize there are things that I can do to change that, to make that situation different. Not that the other person has to do anything, but maybe what I need to do is stop for a minute and let go. And saying, I am feeling guilty about something that I don't even know whether really exists or not. And then most of that is my own self-talk regards to my own self-doubt. So what would it be like in my relationship with this other person if I were to let go of all of that stuff? And all of a sudden, in asking that question, the stuff that I've been holding on to begins to disappear. sort of melts like the snow, and I realized the only thing that is getting in the way, the only thing that's skewed about this relationship is my thoughts about myself. Oh, I can do something about that. My favorite commercial could have had a V8. I could do this differently. Course in Miracles suggests that's a wonderful question to be able to ask ourselves. I would say to myself, how can I choose this different? How could I see this differently? And if you don't like what you've done, what the choices you've made, you can change that. I remember Leo Biscaya one time, the love doctor, said, if you don't like the scene, get the hell off the stage. Well, the metaphysical reality of that is if you don't like the scene, create another one. You have the ability to do that. None of us needs to be controlled by external events. That doesn't mean we're not going to be, but to realize that we are the ones who are allowing that to happen. We're making that into a truth that somehow or another, if this is going on, or if that's going on, if this is going on, then I have to somehow or another be affected by that. And if that's going on, then this is how I'm supposed to react to it. We had a great example of that fairly recently in the elections. Now people voted and people didn't vote. That was a choice people made. People voted for one side, people voted for the other side. That was another choice for me. But I really wonder, how many choices were made out of fear? How many choices were made out of outrage? How many choices were made because we thought that we couldn't live without that choice? Or how many choices were made that I'm not going to make a choice? What I'm suggesting is, if we were to stop and look at it, ask ourselves the question, how were my choices really free? Or were they dictated by fear, by outrage? Were they dictated by past experience? Were they dictated by projection into the future? Were they chosen or choices that I made out of my own sense of hatred or separateness? And if they were they really free? I'm not making a judgment about that. I am suggesting, and this happens to me all the time when I'm given the opportunity to make a sermon like this, I have to get into my own space of self-questioning and say, how does this working for me? How free am I? How free am I writing this sermon? Do I want everybody to like me because I did a good job? Is that going to interfere with my freedom? I'm suggesting that for practically everything that you and I do, there are hundreds or perhaps thousands of pieces of mixed motivation that we are not even conscious of. I remember doing a hypnotherapy class a number of years ago, and one of our teachers, who I really respected and really liked, he said, you know, practically at least 80% of all of your actions during a day are motivated by the unconscious. You're not even aware that you're making a choice, or the choice that you're making is influenced by past behavior, by past ideas, by prejudices, by old things, by old messages, by old tapes, by old ideas, and you're not even aware that you're not doing it on your own. A student once asked his master, he said, "Master, what is the secret of the spiritual life?" And the master said, "Awareness." And the student said, "Master, I don't quite understand." And so the master cleared his throat and said, "Awareness." The student was still somewhat befuddled. "Master, I still..." Awareness! What would it be like if you were aware how unconditionally loved you are? Would that influence your choices? Would that make a difference about how you responded to yourself, about how you responded to your own self-talk, about how you responded to other people? What would it be like to be aware that you always have the freedom of choice? What would it be like to be aware that, as one of my teachers likes to say, you are the meaning maker of your life? You decide what everything in your life means. And you have a choice to decide one way or the other, or thousands of different ways of taking a look. What does this mean? What does it mean to me? You are the meaning maker of your life. No one and nothing else is. I was gifted with a piece of spiritual wisdom a number of years ago that I forget quite often but keeps coming back to me. And that is the sense or the idea of asking myself the question every once in a while, does what I am planning on doing or what I am thinking about or the thought that I am holding in my mind, does it open my heart or does it close my heart? And I've gotten to the point, and I've noticed this with quite a few other people, that we can actually feel what, and I mean feel not in an emotional sense necessarily, but almost on a physical level or a vibrational physical level of what it's like to have a closed heart and what it's like to have an open heart. We can know that. We can be, and part of my trip right now, this time around anyway, is being aware of that. Is my heart open? Is it closed? And I can almost feel that vibrationally when something happens and I fall into judgment or anger or outrage or separateness, and bam, it's like a door being closed. I feel my heart close up. Now, what kind of choices are available to me with a closed heart? Not many. What kind of choices are available to me with an open heart? Practically as many or any that I want. Can I walk through a day becoming a little bit more aware of having an open heart or a closed heart? There's no rules here. There's no way of saying, okay, this is what you should do, this is how you should choose. Because that is going to vary for each one of us probably by moment to moment to moment to moment. And what is the best choice for me this moment might not be the best choice for me 5 minutes from now. I don't know that, neither do you. I mean, we can plan for the next 5,000 years, but none of us knows what's going to happen in the next minute. I mean, I'm sure Valerie had to contend with that most of last week, okay? And I really honor you and the church for doing that. That is such a that was a choice you made. And just an absolutely beautiful one. Thank you for that. Because notice what that does. That blesses everybody. I make a choice to do this particular act of service. Now, obviously, some people, some individuals are directly blessed by that. But in a very real sense, in a way that goes beyond our human understanding, that blesses everybody, blesses everything, blesses the universe. It is so powerful and so beautiful, and that's a choice we make. I can see love instead of this. I could see peace instead of this. One of my favorite stories about choice is in Christian scripture, the story of Martha and Mary, which I'm sure you're probably familiar with. Jesus was visiting with Lazarus' family, who he was great friends with. And Mary was just sitting at his feet, just sort of like almost a cat sitting in the sunshine, okay? Just sort of sucking it up. This absolutely wonderful, loving, unconditionally loving presence, and I'm sitting here basking in the sunlight. Now Martha, who is much more practical, is in the kitchen, and she's cooking dinner. But of course she notices all these other people who are not cooking dinner, who are sort of basking in the sunlight, and so she starts banging some pots and, you ever do this? You start banging some pots and pans together a little bit more, you know, just to get their attention, to let them know, I'm really sweating here, man. I'm really working hard. And finally, since nobody recognizes all the banging of the pots and pans of the work she's doing, she complains about it. And Jesus wonderfully says, Martha, Martha, thou art busy about many things, but Mary has chosen the better part. Now that's really nice, but someone still has to cook dinner. What he was saying, I believe, is, Martha, you can also choose the better part in cooking dinner. You don't have to sit and bask in the sunlight to get the unconditional love that I am being able to offer each one of you. All you have to do is choose to change your point of view. One of my favorite examples of that is Thich Nhat Hanh was talking to a group of people, and he said, when you're doing any even everyday task, you can make that into an act of love, no matter what it is. His example was, when you're doing the dishes, imagine that each dish is a little baby Buddha. How would that change doing the dishes? It's no longer I'm still doing the dishes, but I'm turning it into an act of love. What a powerful expression of choice. I'm still doing what's necessary. I'm still doing what I need to do, but I'm not carrying that around with me as a burden or something that's getting in my way. I am doing it as an act of service and an act of love. Every moment, every day. We began with the idea of asking for help. Lord, that I may see. Help me to choose. Help me to choose to have an open heart in doing whatever it is that I am being called to do today. Excuse me, whether that is giving a sermon, shoveling snow, opening my house, opening my home to someone who needs it. Or just sitting down and having breakfast. Can I make that into an act of love? Can I choose that to be an act of love rather than just something that I'm doing? And it is only the ego that begins to think, oh my God, that seems so exhausting to be aware every minute. And yet to the soul, to the spiritual aspect of our being, it said, wouldn't it be wonderful to be open to the truth of being unconditionally loved every moment of every day, and to have the possibility of being able to share that divine union with unconditional love with everyone I meet and everyone I see. May all beings be at peace. May all beings be free of suffering. May all beings remember who they are. Thank you.